At 2:47 a.m., in a cold Chicago apartment that hummed louder than my pride, I texted the wrong number for baby formula money. And a stranger answered like the universe had finally checked its voicemail. I was holding my son Micah, whispering jokes about his mother turning into a superhero with a cape in the wash, when a reply came that didn't judge, didn't pry, just asked, "Is Micah okay?" 5 minutes later, money. I'd never expect flashed on my screen, groceries landed by noon, and tucked between diapers and formula was a small gray cat with soft ears, the kind of toy that looks like it's seen storms and still believes in sunlight. I'm Aisha Caldwell, and that stranger was Wyatt Langston, CEO of Solace Biotech, widower private man, trying to remember how to live in a world that kept moving without the person he loved. I didn't know any of that at 2:47. Only that help arrived clean, no strings, like a hand reaching in the dark. I looked him up in this morning, read about clinics, Solace-funded photos of Wyatt at medical conferences where he looked more like a scientist than a suit. And when he texted again, "I've been thinking, if you're open to temporary work on a real community outreach project," I felt two instincts fight in my chest, the one that runs before it's pushed, and the one that says maybe, just maybe, life can turn on a dime in my favor too. We met at a corner cafe where the windows poured in winter light and the pancakes tasted like relief. He showed up in a sweater, not a throne knelt, so he was eye level with Micah and introduced himself like you do when respect is your first language. Micah, who doesn't waste time on strangers, when he can go straight to friends, grabbed Wyatt's finger and made a decision. I told Wyatt the non-resume version. Parents gone too soon, my sister Maya working 2 jobs to get me through school, the medical research I loved before a collapse that blamed workers for executive crimes, the necklace Maya gave me so I could wear hope on days I didn't feel it. He listened the way some people pray, steady and full. He told me about Nora, the children's hospital, the gray cats she brought in pairs because she believed in backup comfort, love that doesn't run out. And then Micah looked up, held out his cat, and in a voice clear as morning said, "Da." Not daddy, not a script, just that tiny word like a bridge you don't see until your feet are already on it. We didn't make it a moment in the cafe, but it was one, you know what I mean. Solace Biotech felt like stepping into the version of work I used to dream about. Quiet competence, warm wood, the kind of kindness that doesn't need a sign on the wall to prove it. Marisol Vega, his chief of staff, gave me an office with a child-safe room, so Micah could nap or play after daycare. Soft toys, a white noise machine, details that say we expected you and we made room. The project wasn't PR dressed in empathy, it was a spine. Redesign the Employee Wellness Fund so it worked for people in crisis now, not after they'd bled out on paperwork. I mapped needs, built a 1-page application, wrote guidelines that assumed people tell the truth when their life is on fire. And while benchmarking other programs, I started combing Solace's own records, not to play cop, but to learn from what existed. That's when I found it. $2,000 same day, every month, 2 years straight, to an external consultant, with no contract, no scope, no deliverables, a bland name that tasted like cardboard. Numbers have a temperature, and these ran cold. The next morning, a note slid under my door like a whisper with teeth. Some investigations have unintended consequences for the investigator. Maybe focus on your assigned duties. Friendly advice. I took the file to Wyatt. He read like a person who understands the weight of a payroll and the cost of ignoring what itches. Then he called Lenora an old friend with a laptop full of forensic tools and a gaze that could thread a needle in a thunderstorm. She was ex-FBI, mid-50s, carrying a grief she didn't perform, and when we ate bad break room cookies while mapping accounts and shells and banking trails, She told me about her daughter, about fighting cancer with spreadsheets and missing tea parties she can't get back. Be present and relentless, she said. You can be both. Yeah, that landed. Pressure built like weather. Calvin Dorsey, the CFO, started orbiting my desk, asking HR about my paperwork, asking Marisol whether my role was permanent, asking anyone what files I could see, which are the kind of questions people ask when the light is getting too close to their shadow. One afternoon, I passed Wyatt's office and heard fragments about board pressure and pushing back. Not the whole thing, just enough to wake the part of me that keeps a go bag packed for dignity. That night, I wrote a resignation letter, because leaving on your own terms can feel like the last piece of control. I walked into Wyatt's office the next morning with the letter in my butt and defeat in my throat. You don't have to fight for me, I said. I know how this goes. He stood so fast his chair hit the credenza. That's not what you heard, Aisha. Before he could finish, Calvin slid in with the practiced concern of a man who keeps mirrors. I've looked into Ms. Caldwell's past, he said, and used words like research, misconduct, and falsified data like he was ordering from a menu. My hands went cold, then steady. That's a lie, I said, voice flat as a scalpel. MedTech imploded because executives stole from it. The settlement protected staff, and I have the letters. Calvin smiled the way people do when they think cruelty is a kind of intelligence. Then the door opened, and the room changed temperature. Lenora set her laptop on the table, and Marisol laid out printouts like a quietly furious dealer. Screens filled with corporate registrations and bank trails. The external consultant a shell that led to a holding company that led to an account registered to Calvin's home address. 2 years of payments from a wellness budget meant for emergencies flowing through shells to online gambling, and a personal credit line with interest sharp enough to cut. Calvin went white, then red, then that translucent color people get when the story they told themselves doesn't hold anymore. I was going to pay it back, he said. It's temporary. No one uses those funds anyway. You designed the criteria so no one could. Wyatt said, and I swear, the room went quiet enough to hear the air conditioner think. I thought about nights I counted dollars like votes about choosing rent over groceries, and groceries over heat, about Micah's tiny hand on my neck when fear made my breath small. How many families did you turn into a parlay? I asked. How many kids went to bed hungry so you could chase a Sunday line? In the middle of that, Micah wandered in from the playroom with his stuffed cat, and the unbothered courage of the very young lifted his arms to me, then reached for Wyatt, like it was all part of the same plan, and said, "Da," that single-syllable landing, like a verdict on what mattered. Wyatt held him and didn't look away. Submit your resignation. By morning, he told Calvin, security will escort you out. Every ledger you touched gets audited. Calvin tried to summon outrage and found only empty pockets, then left in a hurry that pretended to be dignity. I pulled the resignation letter from my bag and tore it into confetti that felt like oxygen. You know that feeling when the floor stops moving? That. 6 months later, the wellness fund we rebuilt. Simple applications, fast decisions, a panel that included people who've known real tight months, had kept 12 families from falling into the kind of hole that eats 5 years of your life. I was director of employee support, now not as a favor, but because the work proved itself in the faces that came by my door. At home, the quiet was a different kind. Bedtime stories and voices that got better each week, pancakes on Sunday, a second gray cat, because Nora believed every kid deserves redundant comfort and a slow, careful love that didn't need fireworks to be seen from space. One night washing dishes while the apartment smelled like roasted chicken and crayons, Wyatt dried his hands, looked at me in that steady way of his, and asked if I'd let him be Micah's father for real, legal and loud and permanent, and if I'd marry him. I said yes with dish soap on my hands and relief in my bones because sometimes the right answer doesn't wait to be fancy. Final image if you need one. The three of us asleep on the couch, city light. On the silver necklace, Maya gave me one gray cat under Micah's arm, and its twin at Wyatt's side, not replacement, but backup, not scarcity, but a surplus of comfort, a family, not of chance, but choice. And yet here's the part people argue about in the comments, and maybe you will too. Was it right for a CEO to answer a 2:47 a.m. wrong number with a job and a door, or does intent plus transparency make it the kind of mercy the world needs more of? Do single moms get graded on a sharper curve for asking than executives do for giving? Is a safety net real if you can't reach it when you're falling? Or does a fund that finally works look like favoritism to the people who liked the maze the way it was? You tell me. If you were sitting on that board, if you were at that cafe, if you were me at 2:47 a.m., what would justice look like? What would mercy look like? When does help become power? And when does power decide to help? Drop your take below. The right, the wrong, the gray in between. And if you've lived a night like mine or given a yes that changed a stranger's life, say that too. I'll be there reading every word like it's a light left on.